This is why moving to Venice is hard for some people, but easy for others. So there's 5 main reasons, and here's the first one. For some people, they think it's unattainable. Now this will tie in actually with the 5th thing and one of the most important things that you should probably do, but as far as thinking it's unattainable, for a lot of people, they see this beach town. Maybe they're not from Florida. Maybe there's a good chance you're not from Florida. A lot of people that watch our channel are not from Florida. And the idea of making this big move across the country into a beach town, and if you've ever been to Venice, it's pretty magical seeming, when you go to the downtown and maybe you did the walk through Heritage Park and you saw Venice Beach and went to the jetty or the fishing pier, and you see all of this and it's so different and it just seems almost like a vacation spot, right? It seems like something that, oh, that's cool to go visit, but I don't think I could actually live there. Or, that's a pie in the sky kind of dream. And I think that's a big problem for a lot of people that keeps them from moving here, because whereas some people will look at it and be like, wow, that's an amazing area, I want to go live there. That, or like us, before we moved to Venice, we visited it for the first time. We're like, yeah, that place is cool, that was awesome. And we're kind of looking at it through that lens. We're like, okay, well, let's go back again, couple of weeks passed and we really enjoyed the area, and we're like, let's go back and go hang out in the downtown, go to the beach a little more, because we were just wowed by the area. So we came back a second time and we're like, man, this place is great. It'd be kind of cool to live in an area like this, so kind of got the wheels turning a little bit, but we weren't really looking at it as like something we could do, because you have all these maybe reasons that you're coming up with that you can't do it. In your mind you're kind of working out more reasons that you can't or shouldn't, or it's unattainable than how can I? So then we came like a 3rd time, and then a 4th time, and a 5th time. And on all those times, it was kind of like, man, we're just like coming back here more and more. We want to keep coming back more and more. Like, okay, is it possible to live here? And we started looking at it more through that lens, and that changed everything. So I think the quicker you can get to that, the better. So instead of watching all of our YouTube videos, or even maybe coming to visit Venice and say, oh, that's such a cool place, that's a great place to go on vacation, but I couldn't live there. Start asking yourself instead, you know what, I'd like to live there. How can I make that happen? Second big reasons why moving to Venice is hard for some people but easy for others is waiting. Now this can be for a variety of reasons. People wait for all kinds of reasons. We waited for a while too, probably not as long as some people, because literally from our first time visiting Venice to moving here was probably the span of about a year. But for a lot of people, like, they're waiting for like this big master plan where everything's got to be perfect and fall into place. But I think we know with just about anything big that you're trying to do in your life, trying to wait for all the little details to fall in place, there's just never a perfect time for anything big. It's just the way it works out. There's always so many factors going on. Life's always changing. So you can't always have the exact perfect scenario. Sometimes you just got to say, you know what? I'm going to do it. Maybe you're saying, I got to wait for this perfect time when, life will just tell me it's time to move, or you're waiting to time the market. That's the thing a lot of people we've, been helping the last couple months have said, like, man, I wish I just would have bought 2 years ago because I was trying to time the market and then prices just kept going up. Like even right now, a lot of people, like, the prices had flattened out a little bit and now they're starting to creep back up. And I think a lot of people are thinking that, okay, I'm just going to keep waiting till the market crashes. But if you just look at the data as far as inventory, like, that hasn't really been building up like you would need it to for a market to crash. Or maybe you're waiting based on something that's happening with your job where you're currently living, or with your kids in school and family and things like that. And I get that there's certain things you have to maybe do around a certain amount of time. But again, I think it comes back to that point number one, asking yourself, how can I make this happen? So like, okay, what's a job I could maybe get in the Venice area that would work for me? Or if you're going to retire, then you don't even have to worry about that. You just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to decide to do it right now. Or with your kids being in school, thinking ahead and planning ahead and start making those plans instead of looking at it like, well, we'll see when the time is right. Like, instead, right now, start making the plans for that time when the time is right, and decide now that then you're going to do it. The next reason, and this is one that almost kept us from moving from the area, and I think it's a reason a lot of people maybe don't end up moving or take longer to than maybe they wish they would have. Second guessing things / worrying about things. So like with us, before we moved here, we heard how much more insurance was going to be. We were worried about it being a little bit more expensive than we currently were living, because we were living in a condo in Orlando, which of course is going to be cheaper than a freestanding home that we're living in now. And then all kinds of random little, like, minuscule things that you're like, well, when we move, we're gonna have to do this, we're gonna have to change our address, and like stuff like that. And just waiting for a lot of little things that, like, for us in retrospect, after being here like 3.5 years, like a lot of the stuff that we were worrying about, like, I can't even remember what most of it is, so I can't even tell you, but I just know a lot of it was like little piddly things like, you know, changing your address on your driver's license and stuff like that, that like, yeah, it's a little bit stressful during the move and things like that, but it's done and over with all within like the span of a couple weeks to a month. And yes, insurance was a little bit more here than versus Venice, because again, we were in a condo and a little bit more inland, but it wasn't like something that we couldn't afford to do. It was just like, you know, you're worrying about, oh, you're gonna have to pay more, but you're gaining a little bit of a higher quality of life if you're somewhere that you would want to be more. You know, your day to day, you're gonna enjoy a lot more being in the place that you wanna be versus maybe if you're, you know, somewhere where the weather is cold and you're miserable because you hate the cold. Isn't it worth maybe paying a little bit of extra, you know, when you break that up, you know, for every day? What does it come out to, like 15, 20 cents? I don't know. I'd have to do the math, I guess. Maybe it's like $1, $5, but it's worth it for me, easily, no question. So I think it's important to put a lot of those things in context and ask yourself, you know, maybe some of those things that are, you know, cons for you, are they really that big of a con compared to the upside? And then number two, how many of these things that you're worrying about really aren't that big of a deal? Yes, maybe they will stress you out for a little bit and, you know, put a little bit more on your plate for a week to a month, but grand scheme of things, once you get settled in, there's just this exciting honeymoon period when you first moved to the area. For like us, lasted like 2 years. Now we're a little more settled in, we're used to it, but we still love the area. You know, we're still glad that we're here. And the vast majority of those things that we were worried about and second guessing, like, I don't even think about on a day-to-day basis whatsoever anymore. I'm not stressed about them at all. And ultimately, in retrospect, I think a lot of those things were just borderline foolish for me to worry about so much, because now I'm just like, man, that was just not that big of a deal. The next reason moving to Venice is hard for some people but easy for others is not visiting. So maybe you've been doing some research on different cities in Florida and Venice came across your radar. Maybe you've been watching a bunch of our videos, because we've been doing a lot of videos on the Venice area for quite a few years now. And then maybe you're going and checking out, you know, different statistics on it, like we used to do. Like there's Area Vibes and, you know, niche.com, and they'll tell you all this different stuff about the city as far as, you know, the cost of living, the crime, the schools, all that kind of stuff, right? All the little details that you're looking for in a city, which Venice fares very, very well in a lot of those ratings on those different websites. However, if you have not visited the area, well, that's gonna make it hard for you to move to the area, because number one, it's one thing to like watch our videos and we show as much as we can of Venice, and we try to make it as, you know, real to what it is as possible and give you the pros and cons and all that kind of stuff on all of our videos. But there's really no substitute for just coming here and seeing it in person and being wowed by it in person. Now, again, the pros and the cons, seeing them in person, I think will really put things in perspective and give you a lot more clarity about what the city as a whole feels like. Is it a match for you? And I think for most people, if you've been doing research and watching videos on the area and it does look like something you want to do, you know, because the pros and cons all fit up with exactly what you want, because a con for some people is a pro for others, and you fit in that camp where pretty much everything's a pro, then come. And I almost guarantee you are going to be wowed, and you're going to be like, yeah, wow, I should have came sooner, because I would have known that I wanted to move here. Now, I also think though, for some people, maybe, you know, they come visit and maybe it's not the right fit for you, and that's A-okay too. But it's important that you take that step to visit so you can either say, yes, this is for me, or no, it's not for me. But if you are in that camp where, okay, you come and yeah, it's for me, it's gonna be like, yeah, it's definitely for me. And you're gonna wish you would have visited sooner, because then it would have got the ball rolling for you making the move sooner. So definitely get down here to visit as soon as you can if you haven't been here. The next reason moving to Venice is hard for some people but easy for others is not doing the math and looking at different options. So what this means is getting a little more serious on crunching the numbers and figuring out, okay, what would my monthly mortgage payment look like, and, you know, insurance and all that kind of stuff. But also being open to and considering different options and different ways of living than you maybe currently are. So example, when me and my wife Heydy, who's on most of the videos on the channel, lived in Wisconsin, we both lived in freestanding, you know, multiple bedroom homes. When we first moved to Florida, we moved to Orlando and we lived in a condo. Very, very different lifestyle for us. However, we found out there was a lot of perks to that. There was a lot of things we really, really enjoyed about it, and we would definitely do it again and consider it again, because there's the pros of, let's say, no maintenance, you know, on the exterior. You don't have to worry about the lawn, you know, all that kind of stuff. Or maybe you've always lived in a condo and there's a lot of perks to having a freestanding home where you have complete control over the way the lawn and the landscaping and things like that look. Plus you get, you know, more privacy maybe if that's important to you, or whatever the case may be. But you know, for a lot of people, they look at one and it's a hard no, like a condo is a hard no, or a house is a hard no, or living in an HOA is a hard no, or, you know, living in a non-HOA is a hard no. So if you don't know what an HOA is, down here in Florida, usually an HOA is going to be like, a lot of them are gated communities. They're not always gated. It's a lot of times going to get you sidewalks and streetlights. A lot of non-HOA communities won't have those sorts of things. So those are things to consider when, you know, moving to Venice. But maybe coming to Florida, you know, if you're looking to downsize and get outside and you know, be doing more things and having less maintenance to deal with, maybe a condo is something you should put on your radar and consider, or maybe even a townhome if you don't want, you know, want the person above and below you and on the walls to the side, or, you know, maybe you could get an end unit where you're not, you know, sharing wall with, you know, people on both sides of you. So those are all like options to think about. You know, maybe I don't want to be in a condo unless it's on this, you know, on the side wall where I'm not sharing walls on both sides with people, or maybe a townhome I could do, or maybe a mobile home, or maybe a freestanding home, you know. Or maybe you're saying, I only want new construction, but maybe there's a few resale homes out there that are only like 2-3 years old that are pretty much brand new that you could think about. Or maybe you're thinking, oh, I only want resale homes, and you know, there's a lot of perks to the new construction side of things that you should consider. So at least looking at all those different options, really asking yourself what you want out of your life in Venice, and then saying to yourself, okay, based on what I want out of my life, what kind of types of homes should I consider, and being willing to maybe try something new. And within that, maybe even saying I'm willing to be flexible, you know, with the different areas of Venice that I will live in, or maybe considering a sister city like Northport or Welland Park or Nokomis, or maybe even, you know, Sarasota or Inglewood to the south of us. Because for some people, maybe, you know, it's a thing of, I want a freestanding home, but I can't afford, you know, a house in Venice. I don't want to do a condo in Venice. Then Inglewood gives you a lot of the benefits that you like out of Venice right in Inglewood, or Northport for that matter. You know, and you could still come to Venice. You know, you get that small town feel in both those areas. It's a little bit quieter, more quaint in both those areas. And you're still in striking distance to come to Venice quite often. And then within all that, you know, putting into the mix those numbers that you crunch and saying, okay, what can I realistically afford, and what would be an option for me, and what would be the different options as far as areas and types of homes. And once you get a little bit of clarity on that sort of scenario and the different possibilities for you, then I think it's time to go ahead and get a hold of Heydy, my wife, who's on most of the other YouTube videos. Call, text, or email. Phone number is 941-221-1897. She'll help guide you to some of the different areas to consider and the different homes that are out there that fit the criteria that you're looking for. I think it's important to get a little bit of clarity on that first, but she can help you, you know, refine a little bit of that vision and help you see what the options are. And if you're looking to refine that vision even more, check out this video. It gives you a little bit more idea about where to live in Venice and the different pros and cons of the different areas. And also be sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications to catch the newest videos where we go over more about life in Venice, Florida. If you found the video helpful, hit the like button and live breezy.